2001: A Space Odyssey, released in 1968, has gripped the imagination of people for over 50 years. This is due to the cornucopia of different interpretations stemming from the film's abstract visions on philosophy, physics, and evolution. There has been perpetual inquisitiveness orbiting around the end of the cinematic masterpiece, and as time has dynamically passed, so has the depth and value of proposed explanations. However, after 50 years, a clip has finally emerged of Stanley Kubrick reluctantly giving his description of what the ending sequences represent. I have used the adjective of reluctantly to describe Kubrick, as there is no one answer to the ending of this movie. Kubrick poetically designed it for infinite interpretation. However, Kubrick fed us multiple hints about his final message, shrouded within the soundtrack, within Dr. Bowman's personality traits, and this following interview has finally confirmed this. I wish to draw attention to the ramifications of his message on modern society, and in particular to the H3C, the human current climate crisis. I hope my message methodologically reverberates with listeners. Nevertheless, this is what Stanley Kubrick has to say.
What we think is their natural, environment. And anyway, when they get finished with him, as happens in so many myths of all cultures in the world, he is transformed into some kind of super being and sent back to Earth. Transformed and made, into some sort of Superman, and we have to only guess what happens when he goes back.
Hidden beneath the sand, the justification behind Kubrick's answer was succinctly embedded into the opening segments of the movie within the opening soundtrack. You may have also missed it at the start of this video, the Spark Zarathustra by Richard Strauss's orchestra, which is inspired solely by Nietzsche's philosophical concepts. I only want to focus on Nietzsche's concept of the Superman, coined in his 1883 book, Thus Spoke Zarathustra. Generally, we assume and think of Superman as somebody who has transcended physiology and the capabilities of man, skin made of steel, clairvoyant vision of an eagle. However, is this truly what makes a Superman? Nietzsche was interested in the psychological qualities that are above, qualities that differentiate by depravity in perspicacious actions. However, human beings have evolved from apes, but what is ape to a man, and what is man to a god? In science and imagination, we are so superior to our predecessors. So what does the next generation of humankind contain? The strategy Nietzsche took was to look at who he admired and home in on the qualities, not on the numerical capacity. Taking hints from Napoleon, Julius Caesar, and many other successful leaders, he took an interest in the way they made their own values. Independent of those around them, they carved like a nail through wood their own immiscible paths, strategic in actions, never resentful, never irascible, accepting of suffering for the greater good and gentle towards the weak. Maybe being great involves nefarious, relentless ruthlessness, whose ramification be more significant in salvation. It begs us to ask the question, who would we like to evolve into? This is the question, how can we ameliorate, without pernicious connotations, sustainably growing while becoming inert to the darkness shadowed behind light? To take this further, the ending signifies a change in humanity as a whole. Hal's godlike, omniscient control slowly dissected into whimpering lullabies and frailty. We see the way Hal is pieced apart, and Dr. Bowman's flourishing to the levels of a higher man, penetration in becoming a figure of Übermensch, imposing his own values as Hal slowly dissipates into a state of vapidness. Dr. Bowman carves his own path, unbound from the grips of Hal, stolid to Hal's wails and death. Here we see Dr. Bowman's ability to act upon his own decisions that end in greater salvation. He has transcended above the science and logical reasoning of Hal. So where does this leave us? What do we as humanity evolve into next? What do we become? From here, I will give my own opinions on the invidious nature of humankind, how we are failing towards the next evolved Übermensch. Humanity is currently facing its own star sequence of exposure towards science and technology. Much like how Bowman experiences new shapes and dimensions, we are blithe and sit in awe as it all goes by, failing to see the other side of the coin behind the technological Renaissance era. The evolution of man is evidently binary. When the ape learned to make use of the weapon, an ape was killed. When Dr. Bowman carved his own path and adopted nihilism, how it was decommissioned. As humanity adopts further technology, forlorn our planet remained, tenuous in repair, she, Mother Nature, lay slowly dying. Innocuous as our actions seem, only those who listen will hear the screams. So what should we do? It is time for us to speak up and to pursue active exposure of why we must all drive environmentally sustainable innovation into the world's most significant sectors. Many of us are actively choosing to ignore the repercussions of our decisions, burdening our future generation. The easiest way we can prevent this is to speak up and propagate knowledge of why it's vital to protect our planet. How will man continue to evolve, continue to flourish, achieve the high being status, if we do not do so with driven and determined supporting sustainability? This is often unspoken about due to misanthrope, the act of people distrusting humankind, not having faith in our abilities to find innovative solutions. But during the coronavirus lockdown, we have seen the clear potential man has in its powers to protect. During the COVID-19 lockdown, the macro and micro environment experienced real changes and displayed to us the need for sustainable innovation. The 2030 Energy and Climate Paris Framework seeks to drive carbon production down by around 40%. This seems like a huge target to reach, but it is necessary and achievable through sustainable, new, innovative ideas. Here is the direct effects coronavirus has had on our environment, summarized by Catherine Hayhoe.
Positive thing though, to meet the Paris target, which we were talking about before, we have to reduce our global carbon emissions about 45% by 2030. And that sounded like an almost impossible goal last year. Well, you know what? We got almost halfway there in 3 weeks in April.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So that's it's as he's saying.
These words fill me with hope and highlight the control man has over the planet, symmetrical to the power Hal had over his crew and ship. If we choose to speak up, and corporate bodies choose to place sustainability at the heart of their cultures, real change can be made with mathematical supporting evidence.